Hi, my lovelies, Woo here, and today we're continuing with the theme of fear and paralyzed will, so that want to but can't, and how that kind of affects your life, how that gets affected in your body and stored. And so this is another episode of somatic navigation. So basically we're just trying to figure out what our bodies are trying to tell us and how we can be more free in our movement and be a little bit happier. So today what I kind of like to talk about is kind of getting that fear and paralyzed will to move through your body. And to recap a little bit earlier in the week, things that we were discussing is that it comes from like this part has to do a lot with your voice, has a lot to do with your throat chakra and the way you communicate. So whether that is through actually talking or that's through writing a letter or even just like your body moving around. And so what it also entails is that in Eastern medicine is that it's connected to your kidneys and your bladder. So these are things that are typically those emotions that are kind of held in those areas. And then it also gets held throughout your body for other reasons because you're on guard for some reason. Being afraid, you generally kind of retract and you kind of want to come back into yourself a little bit. Maybe curl up in a ball in like the fetal position, like those kind of things, and all the muscles that takes to do. So those are all the muscles that are going to be involved versus the muscles that help open you up more, the ones that are down your back and that kind of thing. So kind of what we're doing is we're trying to figure out how to move best to get everything to release, get the fascia to release so that the muscle can relax and move properly, and having the freedom to be able to do that. So with that in mind, again, kind of thinking in on what you can do. So you might try to think, well, I'm really afraid right now about something, or like I really want to go out and do something, but I can't right now. And kind of just notice how your body feels and how you want to move with it. And generally, like fear makes you want to retract. So like this is my first movement that I want to do when I think about being fearful. And so I'm noticing I generally get the weight back on my right leg and how this all kind of melds together. I'm looking for support from my right side, and so that's something else that I can kind of take into account, kind of think about like what actually might be stored in the tissue to kind of help give me an idea of how to resolve it. Another way, so like maybe you're feeling into this this thing and you feel like you just can't get like a stretch, you can't really get it to move anymore, or you're starting to notice that this fear or this paralyzed will is kind of bubbling up and you can't really get rid of it. So another way to kind of help your body process it is to we're going to go back to the points on your wrist. So this is my left hand, and I'm going to go 3 fingers on, so 3 fingers, and then I'm going to take the first 2 off, so I'm left with the 3rd finger on my wrist, and then I'm just going to put that hand on my forehead and kind of breathe through it. So if I am feeling like I'm getting some fear and stuff like that, then I know that that anxiety of being fearful is kind of bubbling up. And so getting your body to process it by doing the pulse point to your forehead, and that can help it move through your body a little bit better. You might notice after you've done that you feel better because it's helped move that energy through your body. But you also might notice that when you go back to stretch that again, like, oh, like I was like this before and now I wanted to like open up and I can move better when I move backwards. Or my shoulders and my chest have more freedom in them because I'm allowing myself to not be so scared and guarded anymore. And I'm opening up my chest because I'm more open. And so that can be one way to kind of get into it a little bit and kind of help process what you're going through. And then also kind of noticing like where it is in your body that you're feeling this. So like if I'm feeling, again, going back to, I wanted to go retract like this. So I'm putting my left shoulder down out as like a guard for me. So kind of what am I saying? Like maybe I'm feeling like my left arm is the strongest. I'm actually right-handed. So there's something about like maybe I need to have that right arm free, and that's why my body's shifting back this way. And I'm guarding with my left hand. So feeling into fear, like feeling what my body does and how it wants to retract, and noticing all the muscles that are involved in that. And so kind of what I'm noticing is that like everything kind of makes sense. Me being right-handed dominant, me wanting to retract with my left side, me wanting to have my right hand still available to, you know, fight for my life if I need to, kind of thing. But it's not always things that are like, we're not being chased by animals and stuff anymore, or not so frequently. And so it's not necessarily something that I need to worry about. I don't need to worry about like throwing a punch or like grabbing something or shielding myself, because I'm not in a war, and I'm not in trauma like that, and I'm not fighting for my life, but I am fighting and I am struggling for different things. And it does the same thing to your body. Your body still processes it as fear. Like, oh my goodness, like this is life or death here. Like this is fear. Like this is, and it might just be something like a comment that somebody said to you and it kind of set you off, where you're like, oh, like that's going to be, or maybe it's something that's going on right now that like you're fearful of, maybe your job or something like that, or bringing money in, and things along those lines. And kind of just notice how your body reacts to it. Like mine just wants to shift with putting my my left side down and really protecting my ribs. So some of the things that like that might is that I really want to protect my lungs, especially maybe I feel like my left side's my weaker side, and that's why I need to protect it. So maybe that means that again, left side, we've talked a little bit about this. Left side has to do with relationships, female, and money. And right side is career, male, and professionalism. There are also some other things that kind of go in those categories, but those are kind of like the big three of each. So maybe I feel like I need to protect my lungs and my organs and stuff more on my left side, just because you know, that's what this fear is bringing up for me. Your lungs hold things like grief and sadness. So maybe I feel like I really need to protect my left lung, because maybe it's a relationship thing for me. Maybe, you know, could be a number of things, I guess. And so just kind of looking at how my body wants to react when I think about fear, and what my body wants to do and how it wants to shift. So kind of back to the intuitive movement part of it. So I've already decided that this is what I want to go into, but how do I get to a place where like I'm noticing as I push back into this, I am noticing that I do have like a little, it's not necessarily pain, but it's definitely like some tightness kind of going down like the back part of this fascia here. So maybe with the intuitive movement, I might feel into going back a little bit farther and noticing that my hip here is still really tight. So I might kind of move into that, move around, and just noticing how my body wants to move to kind of get rid of that. And I'm noticing that like as I've started, you know, maybe a couple of minutes into this video really where I've been doing stuff, and I'm noticing that this stuff in here, all these muscles on my left side seem to be a little bit more retracted, a little bit more guarded, and a little bit more activated at the moment. So I'm feeling like maybe that's what needs to be released. Maybe I need to be working on the left side more than the right side, because I am tighter on this side and it's feeling like it's more active, or it needs more of a release to it. And it's obviously what I was trying to protect to begin with. So maybe I just need to feel around in here and see what happens. So I'm noticing as I'm moving my arm around, I'm just kind of letting it do whatever it wants to do, whatever feels right, whatever feels better. Noticing that I'm stretching as it's kind of moving around. noticing how different parts of my fingers kind of seem to, like, that maybe the inside of my middle finger might get a little bit more tense while the outside seems to be a little more like looser in that, and then noticing how that starts to affect as it goes down the rest of my fingers here. So if I'm just noticing that as I'm moving, I'm just kind of noticing that, like, through my thumb and my wrist, I've got a little bit more of some tightness and tension. So when I feel through this, I might move my thumb around a little bit more. I might move a finger around a little bit more, or move my arm or my wrist. And just kind of letting my arm and my hand kind of do it once. Like right now, like most of my fingers are engaged, but not like in a fist yet. And my arm is locked out, kind of like really activating my tricep back here and my forearm, and just kind of noticing as I'm holding this, like how it's, and I'm still kind of rotating, how it's kind of releasing as it's rotating. And now it feels like my hand is relaxed a lot more. My wrist still feels a little bit engaged in this, and I'm just kind of letting it flow out, or move around. And so now, like, my whole arm feels like it's a little bit looser in reaction to like when I'm thinking about being scared again. I'm not so much wanting to guard here anymore, but I am still feeling a little bit through here. So I might try to explore that a little bit by just moving around and seeing if it feels better if I go forward, or if I go backwards, it feels better if I go forward. So I'm just going to follow this movement pattern. And now I'm like really like almost like pushing my arm forward and seeing what that does. And it feels like I was getting a better stretch, or it felt better when I was up here. So I'm going to come back up this way. And again, it's kind of right through like all these muscles through here. So all my pec muscles and my rotator muscles and my shoulder are getting a little bit active, and they're kind of pulling my shoulder back in a little bit. And now it feels like I'm just really pulling into my body, and not thinking about doing this motion. Just as I'm talking, I'm doing this, and kind of just noticing that like it actually kind of feels better. Like now this part is released. Now my my shoulder kind of released, and it feels like all the way down my side kind of released. So like and it just feels, now if I'm comparing sides here, this side now feels better than this side. So if I even go back to kind of where I started with my right foot and back, and going back into this guarded position, and kind of like then thinking about the fear or anxiety that I was feeling earlier, and how that was making changing my body. And I can still kind of do this, but it doesn't feel the same as it did a moment ago. In fact, I'm feeling the tightness more right here than I am in my shoulder or my bicep was. So I might, if I'm trying to target right here a little bit, I might put my hand here to kind of move around and see what happens then. And I'm just kind of slowly rotating my my hips and my torso kind of in different directions to kind of open that up and see what happens. And that feels a little bit better. When I get back into this, I don't notice that area as much anymore. So things like that are what you want to kind of feel into when you're feeling into this like paralyzed will, this want to do something but you can't do it right now, or this fear and anxiety that you're feeling. And then knowing that like you can, if you're getting really overwhelmed, like obviously there are people out there that would can assist you with this, but maybe you might see if you try that third point and put it on your forehead and see if that helps process this fear as it goes through your body. And then noticing as you're processing it through your body how you're feeling, and noticing that it's not just getting trapped and stored in your body anymore. So let's leave this here, and again, you can check me out on Somato Enlightenment on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See you next time.